The sorceress is one of the worst classes in Diablo 4. Do I have one at level 100? Yeah. Have I spent more than 150 hours playing this one? Yeah. Will I play it on season 1? Most probably, yeah. There's definitely 100 reasons why you should be playing sorcerer if you are enjoying the class, but there's definitely problems with the class within the game right now. I'll cover those hopefully in this video and give my thoughts on what the sorcerer is right now in this current state of the game and how I hopefully want to see the sorcerer become in season 1 and the seasons forward. One of the biggest issues with the sorcerer right now in the game is the defenses, how defensive a sorcerer can be. If you've played the sorcerer at all in stages in nightmare dungeons about 20 levels higher than you, then you know you get one-shotted. There's no way around it. You will be getting one-shotted by absolutely everything. There's nothing that doesn't kill you in, if you try, let's say 70s, higher than 70 in nightmare dungeons, you'll get one-shotted and you'll have to completely change up your build to more defensive ones, extremely defensive ones, with the limited paragon nodes available in order to survive a little bit longer. That being said, I think there's a fundamental problem with how the sorcerers was designed within the game. The sorcerers was initially designed having the additional benefit of having intelligence, all right, in the builds. Intelligence gives you extra resistances, but currently the resistances in the game are completely bugged. The resistances do not provide you the same protection that armor does. Armor is the MVP in terms of how defensive your character is going to be, and the difference between other classes and the sorceress in terms of how much armor the paragon nodes give you is insane, with the sorceress pretty much getting about 100 to 200 armor throughout the paragon nodes, comparing it to, let's say, other classes such as the rogue and the barbarian, who get insanely more armor to protect them and help them become tankier. Then you're gonna say, okay, cold brew, you have the resistances, which might get fixed, might not, we don't know exactly when, but the biggest other problem is barriers. Okay, barriers with the sorceress is one of the biggest ways for you to get protection other than just health value and armor value. Another big problem with barriers is that they do not stack. You cannot get the barrier from ice armor to stack with barriers from your paragon nodes, or even the barriers that you can get from your skills, okay, from the skill points that you have spent. There's barriers that you can get from damage taken. All those barriers, if they stuck, they would have been crazy more effective than they currently are, and would provide more protection in terms of just effective health compared to how they are right now, which they are limited most of the time to, let's say, the ice armor. It's limited to base health and not the actual health that you have. So my ice armor with some ranks into it actually is only about 3,500 health worth of protection, which is basically zero the higher nightmare dungeons that you do. Another big issue with protection, how you need to use some protective skills in order for your sorcerers to survive longer. Well, it's this enchantment right here, the firebolt enchantment, which makes it basically a necessity for any build out there to compete in higher level dungeons. Again, I'm not saying that you cannot go without it. You can definitely farm 55s if you're at 100, 55s, even 60-ish, early 60s without the firebolt. But since the firebolt can not only provide you some extra damage through just applying burning to everybody, to every enemy, and then the burning also provides damage reduction through the paragon nodes, this becomes pretty much a necessity, okay? Becomes a necessity. With enchantments being only 2, you're basically locked in the one, and then the other one, it has to be something different depending on what kind of build you're running. The most effective builds right now is the blizzard and the ice shards builds. You can actually mix up blizzard with ice shards if you want to, and that is the one I most usually run when speed running dungeons. The problem with that is that you kind of have to use the second enchantment, right? Yeah, you have to choose something that will be effective, and the higher you go in terms of dungeons, the more difficult it is for you to choose something like teleport in there, which is amazing. I love teleport. I love just teleporting in the enemies, just bursting them down, and then teleporting to the other pack of enemies, and hopefully having my teleport up again, and then using my other teleport. It's just nuts. I love the teleport. but it feels like there's so much more potential. And in the beta, which the sorcerers got really nerfed in terms of how much power they had, we had 3 enchantment slots, which I think this will be what season 1 will bring, and that's why I'm confident in picking the sorcerer class in season 1. I think the enchantment slots will become 3, so we'll have a bigger variety in terms of the skills that we're about to use. And hopefully there will be additional changes to how enchantments work, so how your different skills will be affecting your build overall, and it will force us into situations where we are really considering using different skills in terms of, oh, I'm just going to use firebolt, I'm just going to use ice shards, and that's pretty much it, right? Hopefully this will bring in a bigger variety, but that's just hoping for season 1. That is in terms of the biggest problem for the sorcerer, is that the requirement to have burning damage in order to amplify your defensiveness. If you do not apply any of your skills, if you do not have a barrier up, you're pretty much dead. There's no chance you'll be surviving any of the skills in the Nightmare Dungeons. The next big problem with the sorcerers is the skills that this class has. I'm not gonna say the skills aren't interesting, or at least provide some kind of diversity in terms of the builds. You can go ice, where you freeze enemies. You can go fire, where there's a lot of immobilized potential in there, especially with meteor. And then you can go lightning, where there is a stun. The big problem with that is one of our skills, Frost Nova. Frost Nova makes it basically a necessity. It makes every single build out there require Frost Nova without any doubt. Frost Nova is required because of the vulnerable effect, and how the sorcerer class, and I believe also the necros, do not have access to vulnerable through the exploit glyph. Okay, the exploit glyph is a little bit different for us, and it does not apply vulnerable at the start, but it does multiply the vulnerable damage, right? There's the exploit node that I have. It would have been better if we had the access to the vulnerable through exploit like other classes do have, so that it limits our use of Frost Nova to maybe only the Frost builds. But without that, we have to lock in basically Frost Nova. And you can see I have on my sorcerer, out of the 4 potential skills that a sorcerer can have, I have all of them. It's just that much required. I don't know any other class that needs to have every single one of its defensive skills up on the bar in order to be able to perform at any point in the game. All right. I have played a little bit of rogue. I have played a little bit of druid, but of course, haven't played all classes to level 100 to be an expert on them. But I doubt it that any class looks like this in terms of their defensive skills. With that being said, just have a look at what build I'm running right now. I'm running Blizzard, where it's one of my mastery skills, and Blizzard on itself doesn't do enough damage for it to be worthwhile the increase in ranks, or look for increase in Blizzard ranks within my item slots. The reason for this is basically that ice spikes are my damage, and ice spikes is a legendary power that you can apply to one of your items, and that is what the real damage comes in through this build that I'm running right now. It's kind of nuts that you go heavily in everything except the actual skills that help you do damage. And another alternative would be to run ice shards, where you are going to be maxing out ice shards for extra potential damage coming out of this skill. But that is a different discussion. And tying into the point of having Frost Nova basically required in all of our builds, we come into one of the strongest legendary aspects that you can actually get, and it's a must-have for any sorcerers out there, right? And that is the control, the aspect of control. This one right here. You deal 33% damage. It's a varied damage, more to immobilize, stunned, or frozen enemies. So if you manage to apply all of those effects, so immobilized and then stunned and frozen at the same time, your damage becomes from 100, it's multiplied again to, let's say, 300, is multiplied again to 900, and the multiplication becomes so insane that you see those big numbers. But you'll have to apply all 3 effects at the same time to even see those big numbers, and that's where it becomes a big issue beating bosses with this one, because you cannot do anything on them. So you stagger them, and until you stagger them, you're not really doing damage. And bosses, honestly, in this game, especially Nightmare Dungeon bosses, are not that difficult comparing them to the trash, really. And for Lilith, I know you guys are gonna say you can beat Lilith. That is a completely different encounter and is relatively difficult to do, and the sequence that you have to do everything is very, very specific. But this is the problem with this aspect, is that everything around our build is because of that one. So we have to freeze the enemies, we have to immobilize them, and we have to stun them at the same time. And legendary aspects on the sorcerer also have the big issue. The majority of them, well, not the majority, but a good chunk of them have a penalty for using them. And I don't know any other class that has this sort of penalty system within their skills. I'll give you guys an example. Just look at this. My Frost Nova gains an additional charge, but cooldown per charge is increased by 30%. So I have to find a legendary aspect that has the lowest amount there, so I don't get penalized as much. You're gonna say, yeah, but you get double Frost Nova. I know, but I don't know any other class that get penalized this much for using up a legendary power. Then I have the best in slot chest piece unique that we all have as sorcerers, which is this one, the Raiment of the Infinite, which gives your teleport the stun ability. And you need the stun and pull because, again, the aspect of control. The teleport cooldown is increased by 20%, so that limits our ability to be mobile. So we already are using a defensive skill offensively, which is teleport. We used our Frost Nova offensively, and we used even our Flame Shield offensively to apply immobilize because we cannot fit it in any of our other skills. You could say I could run Meteor instead of Ice Blades here, and that could help me with immobilize, but again, it's different. It's a much bigger cooldown, and that brings in more issues. And again, we have other legendary powers such as the Ice Shards one, which again brings in a penalty for using it. So there's a lot of penalties within this sorcerer's class that makes it weaker instead of stronger when using a legendary power. And even our skills here, the Glass Cannon one, 24% increased damage, but take 12% more damage. That just amplifies on how easy it is for you to get one-shotted. But then you're gonna say, if you're gonna get one-shotted, might as well max it out, right? Yeah, that's how I kind of think sometimes. But it feels like you both need it and shouldn't have it. It's such a big of an issue when using the Glass Cannon. Another big thing with the sorcerer is that I was keeping every single item that I was finding while I was leveling up, and I was trying to think of different builds that I could possibly do in the future. And just let me give you an example of, I was just looking at the Fireball build, and you can see this one. Look at that. Fireball now bounces as it travels, exploding each time it hits the ground, but its explosion deals 66% less damage. So that's where we are hindered again by using a unique that not only you cannot enchant and change up its one of the skills, or one of the affixes in there, you have to suffer through that big penalty, which is the 66% less damage. The same thing goes for our unique staff, which again, Charge Bolt. If you were wondering on using that, you have to deal even less damage when having to do that. So again, that's another reason for you to completely not pick this one up. And since it's also lacking vulnerable damage, it makes it like a complete trash item and trash build to consider. So all of these kind of different items bring in a penalty for the sorcerers where it shouldn't have, really. It's not like we are so overpowered, comparing it again to other classes that I've been watching videos of content creators doing insane amounts of damage and clearing it. This shouldn't have been the case for the sorcerer, and the sorcerer class in general is the one of the most played one. And if you bring in such bad experience of playing a class, it really makes people not want to play this class, which I think it's not really cool, since it's a fun class, I believe, and it's a caster class, right? It's a caster class that you want to be playing these sort of games, and you want to see it do damage from afar and not just have melee build after melee build after melee build, which is another problem when using your defensive skills as offensive skills. And with that being said, this was the video, guys. I hope you got an idea of what my issues are with the sorcerer class. Share your thoughts down below in the comments. I want to see what your thoughts are of the sorcerer. Did you quit on your way to 100? I kind of saw the 100 as my goal while playing the game. I now am playing a little bit on my druid, but I still have some things that I want to improve on my Sork and try out other builds, which I know are not as best as the Blizzard one or the Ice Shards one. But again, I really want to explore what other options we have before season 1. And when season 1 comes in, right before, we're going to have some patch notes. Hopefully those bring in some breath of fresh air for the sorcerer class and gives us more options for the future and how to see different builds coming into fruition even before the season 1 patch comes. Just through the notes, we'll know, okay, maybe the Hydra now is a possible build that can out damage Ice Shards. That would be amazing and could bring in even more theory crafting before season 1 comes. So this was the video, guys. Thank you all for watching. Subscribe. I'll see you all in the next video. See ya.